And this evening she has a tale for us that is a family story about skeletons in the closet. Would you please help me welcome Betty Ann Polaha.
At ETSU, they told us, just tell the story. Don't try to tell people what to think, what to know, what to believe. Just tell the story. When I graduated from 8th grade, that was a big moment. I had been in the same elementary school for 8 long years. And that school was right across the street from where I lived. And I was convinced now that I had graduated and I was going to high school, that this meant that I was all grown up. And I'll demonstrate how grown up I was. My mother called myself and my 9-year-old brother into the kitchen one day and told us that in December, you're going to get a new baby brother or sister. My brother said, I want a boy, I want it to be a boy. And I said, no, it's gonna be a girl, it's gonna be a girl. Of course, I thought, if it's a girl, it might have to share my room. But never mind. My brother said, Mommy, can I name him? Can I name the baby? And I said, the very adult thing, no, you can't. I'm the oldest. I should name the baby. And my mother said, well, if it's a boy, Johnny can name the baby. And if it's a girl, Betty Ann can name the baby. And that is why my youngest brother's name is Richard. He was named after my 9-year-old brother Johnny's best friend. But my mother's pregnancy didn't affect me at all. I don't even remember any part of it, shape or form, because I was going to high school and it was all about me. I was grown up. I was going to take a city bus downtown, 5 miles away from my house. I was going to go to a school where I would change classes and have different teachers, and I'd go to dances and basketball games and meet boys. And I was going to get a new uniform. Well, it wasn't exactly new. It was exactly like the one I wore for 8 years, but it was a different color. And so the semester started, and it was everything I thought it was going to be. And by December, I had my first taste of beer, had my first drag on a cigarette, I had my first kiss. And they were all overrated as far as I was concerned. But still, that meant I was grown up. So, Christmas morning, I woke up and I came down to the kitchen and I saw a sight that I had never seen before and never saw after that. My father was trying to scramble eggs. My mother was nowhere in sight. And he looked at me and he said, the baby wanted to come last night, so I took your mom to the hospital, and you have a baby brother. And I don't remember anything about that Christmas. I'm sure we opened presents and went to somebody's house for dinner, but I don't remember any of it because of what came after. 2 days later, I was home by myself. That was always fun. Like to be home by myself because I was grown up. The phone rang and I thought, good, if it's my friend, I won't have to crawl underneath the end table to the corner and whisper because nobody's home. I can talk. We only had one phone. And I picked up the phone and said, hello. And I heard, Betty Ann? Yeah, it's me, Uncle Jerry. I knew his voice. Is your mother home? No, Uncle Jerry, she's in the hospital. She had a baby boy. I couldn't figure out why he didn't know, because news travels fast in our family. He said, well, is your father there? No, he's at the hospital with my mom. Oh. Well, I need you to do something for me. I need you to do me a favor. Uh-huh. I need you to tell your mother that your Aunt Mary committed suicide. She hung herself. Are you there? Yeah. Will you tell your mother for me? Yeah. Okay. Goodbye. He shouldn't have told me that. He shouldn't have told me that. He should have waited for my dad. He should have called back later. He shouldn't have told me to do that. And then I thought, he told me that. He told me. He told me that adult thing. He trusted me to tell my mother. Wow. Now you might be wondering why I'm not all upset because my Aunt Mary died. Well, you see, my mom had a huge family. There was 11. My mother had 4 sisters, plus all the boys had married. I had tons of aunts, and most of them were all pleasingly plump. They styled their hair with home permanents. They loved to cook. They had 2 or 3 or 4 children. They loved to gossip, play cards, and dance the polka. My Aunt Mary was different. She was trim. She had long brown hair that came to her shoulders and it was wavy, and her eyes were the same color. You could say she was pretty, but she was different. She was quiet. And you know, even though her daughter, my cousin Miriam, was my best cousin friend and I had spent overnights at their house, I couldn't remember one thing my Aunt Mary ever said to me that I remembered. And then I heard my father coming in the kitchen door, and I ran to the kitchen. I said, Daddy, Uncle Jerry called. He said, Aunt Mary died. She committed suicide. She hung herself. And my father froze in the doorway, and I can still see him. His one foot was on the kitchen linoleum, and the other foot was on the porch. His hands were like this. He looked at me, shook his head, looked down at the floor, turned around to leave. I said, where are you going? He said, back to the hospital. And that was it. That was it. For 2 days. My mother came home from the hospital. She took me upstairs to the bedroom and she was showing me how to diaper my brother. We didn't have a changing table, I remember. It was on the bed, and we were both watching the baby. As she explained, she said, Aunt Mary had mental problems. A couple years ago, her mental problems got so bad that Uncle Jerry had to take her to the state hospital. At the state hospital, they gave her shock treatments, you know, with electricity, and they were really, really bad. And now Aunt Jerry was having mental problems again, and she was afraid that she'd be sent to the state hospital again, and she didn't want those shock treatments, and that's why she committed suicide. And then she said, the funeral's tomorrow. I can't go. I just came home from the hospital. There's no one to leave the baby with. You'll have to go in my place. What? You'll have to go with your father. Well, I've been to funerals before, but how do you go in your mother's place? What does that mean? What do you have to say? What do you have to do? I don't know. So the next morning I remember dressing in my room almost like I was going on a date. I teased my hair in my Sandra Dee flip. I actually had a black dress and little black shoes. And then I came down the steps to see my date. It's my father in a suit. My father only wore suits to weddings and funerals. We went out to the car and I sat in my mother's seat up front. And my father and I didn't talk to each other. I didn't know what would my mother say. My father probably didn't know what to say to me about the whole thing. So we got to Northampton, and we got to the funeral home, and there was a line of people that came out the door and around the corner. And my father said, "God damn it, I told them to keep the lid shut. They're all here to see the marks on her neck." Marks on her neck? Well, we went and we parked, and we didn't have to stand in the long line because we were family. And we sat there and we watched, I don't know, hundreds of people, it seemed like, go past. And I had my turn, and my Aunt Mary had a suit on and a collar, but I could see red lines on her neck. As we were sitting there, my father turned to me and he said, "If your mother ever did anything like this, I'd dig a hole in the backyard and bury her." And I didn't know whether he was serious or not. But we stayed there for the whole time. And my cousin Miriam, she was kind of like out of it, sitting next to her father. And then the priest got up and he went up to say some prayers and started to close the coffin, and my cousin got hysterical, crying. And I didn't know what to do. Should I be crying? And then a few rows in front of me, my cousin Mickey was. He was 2 years younger than me. And he turned around in his seat, searching for me, searching for clues on how he should act. And I didn't know, but I knew at that exact moment that my childhood was over. About a year later, my Uncle Jerry remarried. He married a woman who was pleasantly plump, but styled her hair with home permanence, who liked to cook, who liked to dance the polka, who was a wonderful mother to my cousin Miriam. They stayed married till they both died in their 80s. And nobody talked about Aunt Mary anymore. I even got, my mother kind of insinuated that I should never tell anybody that there was anybody in our family who had mental problems or who committed suicide. So I didn't tell anybody. But I never forgot my Aunt Mary. That's how do you forget the woman who ended your childhood? Thank you.